What's up, everybody? Welcome to Move the Sticks. DJ Bucky back together. Buck, how you doing? How your travels, man?
Man, I am good. It's funny because we both were doing back to football weekend. In fact, I think we came on back to back on the screen. Like I was at Vikings camp, and then I saw you show up at Colts camp, and you also came back. Did you go to Oxnard? Did you do
Yeah, it
LA?
was Cowboys. Yeah,
Like,
Cowboys yesterday.
yeah. So you had a interesting thing, but no, it was great, man. I think the best part about going to those camps, you get a chance to get some intel that you otherwise wouldn't get. It's one thing to talk to your buddies over the phone. It's another thing to have that face-to-face interaction because you not only talk to the guys that you know. I had a chance to talk to Brian Flores for a long time. Kevin O'Connell, we had mic'd up, but being able to reconnect and talk to those guys, we talked to a few of the front office people. Chisholm
Nice,
is
my guy.
and talking and had a chance to talk to him as he's moved up with the Vikings and stuff like that. So to me, there's so much value. It's no different than when we go and scout in person and do like a live visit or a school call or go to a game. You just get a little more when you go there and you're in person. You kind of see it up close and personal.
Do you remember, go back to the scouting days where, for those that don't know, as a scout, you get out, obviously you're going to college as you do your visits. There was a difference in terms of the information we would get in this time of year at training camp versus the information that you would get in the hustle and bustle of the season. And I feel like it's the same way when we go visit these pro camps where, we'll keep in touch, we'll text and talk on the phone throughout the year with our buddies, but there's so much pressure and so much stress and so much activity going on during the year. You don't really, not to to look at it from a selfish standpoint, we don't get as much out of those conversations. These conversations, I was at the Colts and we finish up practice. And Shane Steichen, I got to know real well doing the Charger games, and he's a great dude. And so after practice is over, we stand there and talk for 30 minutes, and going not only over the Colts, but talking about stuff that he learned in Philly and different things. And I'll give you an example. Like one of the things that came up, we were talking about Anthony Richardson, and then I was hearkening back to his time with Jalen Hurts. And I'm always fascinated, as you are, what makes these guys that have taken these big steps, what makes them tick, what makes them great. And a lot of stuff we kind of learned about Jalen over the years. We told the story about him bringing a briefcase, being business-like. And he goes, I've never seen anybody more serious, about football. He said, we would be in meeting rooms and, as anybody that's been in one of these position rooms, throughout the year, you'll see something funny or somebody will say something funny and maybe you go off on a little tangent. And he said, anytime that happens, Hurts to just be like, so what coverage are they in again? What are they in? He snap it right back. We're here to work, man. Let's get right back on task. And so, that type of insight, those little stories, those little nuggets you get are gold.
They are gold. And what's so funny about the Jalen Hurts story when Steichen gives that, I just wonder if those guys that play quarterback at Alabama are just really conditioned to the process. Because, DJ, you get the same kind of information from the Panthers when they talk about Bryce Young and the way Bryce Young is really beholden to a process and how from a humble standpoint, he talks about, hey, man, we got to get ready. My job is just kind of run the team. Very selfless, not a lot of me. I got oh, no, we got to do this. We got to, the team, the wins, and whatever my role is within that to facilitate the wins, I'm good. I just wonder something about that part of, you are a product of your environment and how you're taught in college how to get ready to win, how that kind of carries over as you get into the pros and that stuff and that level of maturity that some guys have compared to other guys.
Yeah, and this is what we're going to do on this pod, and we're going to do this throughout the next month as we are visiting, talking with other guys, and we're just going to kind of share with you, the listener and the viewer, what we're learning and the nuggets we're picking up, and that's what this pod is going to be like as we head towards the season. So I love catching up with you. We haven't had this conversation yet off the air, so it's fun to have it on the air. I'll give you another quick one, and then we'll kind of go team by team of where we went. But talking to Brandon Cooks yesterday, good friend of the show. He's, we had great relations with him going back to Oregon State days. And I'm like, look, he has a unique career now. When you think about all the different teams he's been on, I think he's been on 5 teams. He's got 6,000-yard seasons in the last 8 years. All he does is produce. Everybody raves about him as a teammate, as a guy. We know what a great dude he is. But I said, you've been on these different teams. Think about the Patriots. Think about the Rams. He's played on some really good offenses. He put up good numbers in Houston. Obviously, they weren't as good there. But I said, what in your opinion? Again, I like getting smart guys' takes on this stuff. What makes the great offenses you've been around, that you've seen, been on the team as well as witnessed? What's the secret sauce? And he said, it's unselfishness. He's like,
Mm,
it is. He said, like, you think of all these great players, but at the end of the day, we're unselfish. And I was thinking back to those Rams teams that were going to the Super Bowl. We always talk about how
mhm.
those guys block, bringing
Yeah.
Cooper Kupp in there. He's working up on linebackers. The ball gets spread around. You're not numbers obsessed. You're winning obsessed, and just kind of being selfless. And I thought, no, that's a good reminder. Shoot, as a high school coach, it's a good reminder of, hey, if we're going to have great success as a group, we need to have guys that are selfless in our team first. It sounds corny, but it's true, man.
It's very true. And it doesn't matter what the level is. Like, you have to get everyone to buy into the big picture of what it is. And everybody benefits when the team has tremendous amount of success. I mean, whether it's players, coaches, front office execs, the better the team is, the more individual honors and accolades and opportunities come your way. And
Mhm.
if you get everyone to understand that, hey, I'm going to step back, embrace the role that I'm in, because if I play my role and we win, oh man, I'm going to be rewarded tenfold. And so when you hear Brandon Cooks talk about the unselfishness, I think that's a common trait among great offenses. Man, it is hard to have a great offense when you have one person worrying about the number of targets and touches that they get, then the other person is worried. Then it puts an inordinate amount of pressure on the quarterback to kind of balance this thing out. The best teams, in my estimation, have an ability where the quarterback is like, hey man, the open guy is getting the ball.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna stay to the process. The open guy's gonna get the ball. And this week you might be up and you may get 12 targets. The next week, the guy on the other side may get 12 targets. And if you can get everyone to buy into that thing, man, it pays off, and it pays off in a major way.
No doubt. Let's start with the teams that we went to, Buck. Why don't you kick us off here? You mentioned the Vikings, spending some time out there with them. Love to know just kind of your impressions, your takes, and what you learned out there.
Okay, first thing, Kevin O'Connell, both of us are friends with Kevin O'Connell. We've known him for a long time. I always tell the story that I was a part of when Kevin got his first coaching start. It was either 2011, 2012, the opening up in Nike headquarters. Kevin is out coaching quarterbacks and doing his thing. And at the time, I think he was coaching Ricky Town, who was like
Nice.
the much
USC.
ballyhooed quarterback that kind of bounced around. And Willie Mack was his coach, and he was going back and forth. And it's funny to think about the Kevin O'Connell that I knew then, and I knew when he played at San Diego State, but to watch him as a head coach now, DJ, and he's in his second year as a head coach, and the confidence that he has as a head coach, and talking to him like, hey man, what's the biggest difference between the first year and the second year? He's like, well, now I kind of understand what the job is. He's like, people can talk about what a head coach is, but until you've done it, you don't really know what all falls on your plate. And so he talked about being able to manage the entire team, where he used to linger with the offense and talking to the quarterback and dealing with the wide receivers, and things would happen in the game. And they would talk to him on the headset about, hey, what are we going to do? We're going for it. We kick what, all those things. And so then we got to the chance to have a conversation about Brian Flores and what it means to have another guy with head coaching experience. He's like, it's being able to have the sounding board. Hey man, how would you handle this situation? If you've been across this, how would it go back and forth? And also, I would say the luxury of when you're an offensive minded head coach and you're the offensive play caller, there's something to having the defensive head coach. Hey, Flo, you deal with the defense and consult me as needed when it comes to the big things. But you handle that, because then it allows you to really focus your attention on, let me make sure I get the offense what they need, while still circling back to the defense. But there's a trust that you have with Brian Flores, because he's not only been a great coordinator, he's been a head coach. So he knows what it should look like, what it should be like. So that takes pressure off of me of having to micromanage the entire building. He can take care of that half of the building. We meet at the top and make sure that the operation is exactly what I want.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mentioned this. I tweeted this out the other day about the podcast on which you had talked about previously about the Shanahan tree. Did you have a chance to listen through all 5 of those?
I have. It was just fascinating.
Awesome, right? I mean, we can do a whole podcast on that. We need to have Jordan Rodriguez come on. She did a wonderful job with that.
Fascinating podcast.
So, and we're kind of taking a little bit of a turn here, but Kevin O'Connell, that's what got me thinking of it, because he makes an appearance in there, and they talk about, the time where this whole thing kind of started really at Washington, goes through Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan's earlier stops in Tampa Bay and in Houston, but it really kind of kicks up right when they're in Washington. It's him and it's McVay and it's McDaniel. It's all these guys, LaFleur, kind of all in there together, and kind of goes through how they've, climbed the ladder and what they've learned and the impact they've had on the NFL. so many different fascinating things you can talk about. But you're talking about Flores, and I started thinking about, one of the key takeaways through that series is these guys, as offensive-minded play callers, they want to hire defensive guys that they have trouble with and schemes that they found difficult, and they want those guys to come in not only so they can practice against it and get good work, but they want to pick their brain and learn, okay, this is, if what you're doing is really working, then it's a copycat league. People are going to take things that you're doing. So give me the tricks here. Let me figure out, how do I attack this? And some of it you learn by going against it every day in practice. Some of it is just talking with those coaches on your team on the other side of the ball and figuring out how do we go at this.
So one of the things that I believe is underrated, and I'm so glad in terms of listening to the podcast, because now you have a greater perspective on Kyle Shanahan, and we'll stick to him first. His obsession with defense, his desire to sit in defensive meeting rooms and learn, how does the defense talk about the offense? I think a lot of times offensive coordinators make the mistake by only knowing their side of it. They really don't know. They only know how to play chess with their pieces. They only know how to play with the white pieces. They don't know how to play with the black pieces. And there is something to being able to spin the table around and say, oh, if I'm on defense, this is what this means. This is how I would teach my defense. Having played on both sides of the ball, DJ, it's one thing to think about how defense talks about coverage. It's another thing to play it, and then you're like, oh, we're completely off on what we think they think about. And Shanahan being able to do that, but then watching the people in his tree kind of bring people over that could challenge him. So now you have Sean McVay bringing Brandon Staley over because he wanted to deal with the Vic Fangio thing. And then Staley being able to put his own stamp on the Vic Fangio thing and how they go back and forth in the yin and yang, and how Shanahan was able to break down or crack the code on the Seattle cover 3 by being with Dan Quinn in Atlanta and really get the ins and outs of what it is, and how he thought it was one thing, and then he got there and was like, oh, this is not anything like I thought about. DJ, to me, that is next level thinking. And I think it's a common denominator that when you look at the people that come off that tree, they've all have gotten outstanding defensive coordinators from systems that have really blanketed the league. And so now I think about Kevin O'Connell kind of wanting some of the New England stuff, which we remember Bill Belichick and Brian Flores completely stymied what Sean McVay was doing in that Super Bowl. To me, it's smart. Not only you bring in a brilliant mind that you can work against, but you're also bringing in a brilliant mind who can throw that stuff against others as the league continues to kind of become the Shanahan system, where you now have someone who's very comfortable defending that system.
Yeah, no, again, I can't encourage you enough. If you haven't listened to it, go listen to that. It is fantastic. I think it's called The Play Callers. Back to Minnesota, just impressions of their personnel. I know you talked about Flores and his impact on this defense. Offensively, what did you see? What does it look like? Obviously, there's a big piece that's not there anymore with Dalvin Cook out there on the market. So what does it look like?
So what it looks like is the trust that Kevin O'Connell has in Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson. It's gonna be a give and go. It's gonna be Stockton and Malone in basketball. Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins, they're gonna do their thing. And Kevin O'Connell is going to move Justin Jefferson around. One of the reasons why we should always double down on route runners and high IQ wide receivers is they expand the playbook. So Kevin O'Connell on TV talked about, well, we wanted to be able to allow Justin Jefferson sometimes to be Robert Woods from our old Rams days. Sometimes he could be Cooper Kupp. Sometimes he could be Brandon Cooks. Well, when you have a receiver of Justin Jefferson's caliber, not only as a playmaker, but as a high IQ polished route runner, it allows you to move him around the formation and to do some very creative things. And then you go and get another receiver that runs route in Jordan Addison.
How did he look, and what were they saying about him?
Look, man, they like him. Like Keenan McCardell is a buddy of mine, and Keenan McCardell knows how to develop young wide receivers. So they not only have Jordan Addison, they have KJ Osborne. And so being able to have those three wide receivers play as interchangeable parts, to me, that's the most difficult offense to deal with. Not when, I know that Justin Jefferson is always going to line up at X. It's every time they break the huddle, I don't know if he's X, F, or Z. And so now on defense, how do we set our defense when he can move all around the formation? Puts a lot of stress. And the Minnesota Vikings, by the end of the year, they should have that capability to be able to move the pieces around the chessboard to create mismatches and really exploit favorable matchups on the perimeter.
Yeah, no, that's outstanding. Any other standouts, Buck? Any other guys that jumped out? I know
Uh,
it's difficult because sometimes we don't get a chance to see all the practice when you're on camera, but just from what you saw, what stood out?
I would say what I like is what they're doing in the back end. And so we've always talked about what the Patriots have done for years when it comes to high IQ players because of the versatility. Well, now what you're doing is you're seeing like a bunch of high IQ players in the back end for the Vikings. I think Byron Murphy was a huge signing that he
Yeah,
brought over. And so being able to move him around, some of the other pieces that they have in place in the back end. And so if you know anything about Flores' system coming from New England, but what he did in Miami, a lot of pre-snap disguise, a lot of moving parts, a lot of checks and those things to put them ahead of the curve. I don't know if they have enough of the pass rushers to do all of the things that he's done in the past. Daniil Hunter being signed gives them that guy, but the ability to move the pieces in the back end, pre-snap disguise, post-snap movement, man, that can mess up a lot of quarterbacks if they're going fast and they're aggressive. And I think they're going to be look, they were 11 win, however many games they won last year, won 11 one-score games.
all those close games.
They're going to be very competitive. They're going to be very competitive, and I wouldn't just count them out and say, like, oh, I expect this team to go to the bottom of the division just because they lost some veteran players.
Yeah, no, that's interesting, man. There you go. There's a little update on the Minnesota Vikings. I've got a couple camps I went to. We'll get to those right after the break. All right, Buck. First stop for me was Indy. So out to Indianapolis. Obviously, the main attraction there was Anthony Richardson. I don't know if you saw the video of him. He's 255 pounds. I mean,
that's crazy, DJ.
And it is a good 255. And I was talking to one of the other coaches before practice started, and he kind of walked out on the field, and I said, I played against Dante Culpepper in college. Like, that's what he looks like from the lower body, what Culpepper looked like.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yeah, but just imagine if Culpepper was, running 4.4. Like,
I know.
That's what's crazy. He's a freak. Ball jumps out of his hand. You can see it just when they're warming up, going through one-on-ones, all that stuff. I would say he was playing very fast as we got into 7-on-7 and team, which is both kind of a good thing and something to keep an eye on. Number one, he was seeing it, getting the ball out. If it wasn't there, he wasn't going to hang in there for a long time. You can tell they're already kind of drilling that in. Like, we're not sitting in here looking for number 4. Like, if we get to 1 and 2, they're not there. Go. Get out, use your legs, extend and create, make some things happen. So he was doing that. He was playing fast. The touch, the accuracy underneath, it's still like there's a ball back half here or there. Like, it's better than I, thought it might be. It's not where it's going to be. So still some work to be done there. He tried to hit a back shoulder and was a little bit off on that down the field, but some big over the top throws, some power drive throws. And when you see it, Buck, there's some guys when you just go out there and you see it and you're like, oh man, this is deer in headlights. Like, he's moving fast, but it feels like everything's moving fast and kind of helter skelter. It wasn't like that. He was just doing things, quickly. It looked like his mind was working quickly, but he wasn't in a panic, if that makes any sense.
Oh, it makes a lot of sense, DJ. I had a chance to see some of the highlights, not only when you were there, but some of the throws that he's made through our camp. And just how they're marveling about his arm talent and just the flick of the wrist and the ball flying and those things. And I've said this, man, this pick reminds me of when Giannis was drafted by the Milwaukee Bucks. And if Anthony Richardson hits, it may change the way that we scout and draft quarterbacks. It may really become all in on traits, and we'll build them from the ground up. And the reason why I compare it to Giannis, because with Giannis, when he was coming from Greece, you saw the length, the athleticism, you saw the potential, but you knew that it took kind of a developmental process to get him ready to play. And Anthony Richardson is very similar because you have a guy who physically has all the things. Like, if we could create a quarterback, he has all of those traits that you would want to put on the creative quarterback plan. Now is, how can you teach him how to play the position, and how do you build an offense around what he already does, while thinking about how can it evolve over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years with this kind of player, this kind of athlete at quarterback.
Well, it's true. It'll be interesting to see how that impacts scouting as we go forward. The one thing, and we'll lead us to this Jonathan Taylor discussion, the biggest takeaway that I had is, you always say, and we do this as we go through the year, like, what's the formula? Like, what every team has a different formula. There's more than one way to get to the finish line to win games, but good teams have an identity and a formula for getting there. So I always try and leave these training camps, say, okay, what's the formula going to be for this team? And with these guys, I look out there and I see, okay, Alec Pierce, big wide receiver. I see Michael Pittman, big physical wide receiver. I see Mo Alley Cox, and I see
Jelani
Woods. Like two twin towers out there at tight ends. And I see Quentin Nelson. And I'm looking at this group saying, okay, the identity of this team is a bully. Like that's when they're at their best. You look on the defensive side of the ball. Really, what jumps out when you look at the defense, it was great to see Shaq Leonard back out there. But really, and even talking to the coaches, they echoed this. It's DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart. Like that, those guys are big, physical bullies. So if that's your identity and that's your formula, the biggest bully on your team is Jonathan Taylor.
So what are we doing? Like, what are we doing?
Debo, like that. I mean, not Debo Samuel, like Debo from Friday. Like this is the guy. This is the neighborhood bully, and this is the identity of your team. And with the young quarterback, he's going to take that pressure off. It doesn't make. He's a bigger chess piece. Like we did this last week, and we talked about the reason we are where we are, and we kind of tried to show both sides of it. I'm just saying, of all these different running back situations, because of the rookie quarterback, the identity of this team, the new coach coming in, trying to get this thing built, trying to get it up and running, to me, that's the one that you say, all right, man, hey, we're not going to go long, but we'll go 2 to 3 years, get that, whatever that number was. What was the number for the contracts we had a couple years ago? It was like 12 million. Like it had started with McCaffrey, it had been like 16, and then it kind of came back down and it settled.
It's a car.
It's like Aaron Jones and somebody else. They all kind of that 12 million range.
Hey man, like Carlease, I think is what 3 year, 36,000 miles. Hey man, look, I'm gonna give you 3 year, 36 million.
36, yeah. Make him turn it down. At least make him turn it down. And then I would say, and this is like inside baseball here, but I'd leak the heck out of that thing. I would go to a local writer, whoever you want to go to, and be like, look, man, we offered Jonathan Taylor 3 for 36, 12 million a year. And he turned it down. So you can now make him answer the questions. We're not answering any more questions.
Make him answer the question because, and I've said this, and I want people to understand because there's a faction people don't want to draft him high, and they also don't want to pay him. I'm saying with the Jonathan Taylor, the reason why you offer him that lease deal, that 3 year 36, is because you still have all the leverage. Yeah. And so you're like, hey man, look, it's 3 for 36, or you're gonna play for 4.3 this year, 5th year option, and then I'm gonna franchise you twice.
He's no 5th year option because he's a second round pick.
He's a second round pick.
So you look at the tag is what, 10? It's under 11. So you're gonna get 2 years for 15. But we're gonna do right by you and recognize what you mean to this team, what you mean in the locker room. By all accounts, great teammate, great guy. What you're gonna mean to our rookie quarterback.
Give you a little extra.
And I don't think it's like you say, oh, well, you just don't have to do it. Why would you do that? Well, you know what? The Eagles didn't have to give Lane Johnson a little extra money either, but they recognized who he is and what he means, and they did.
So there's that fine line between it's business and then when it's personal. Like everybody understands business, and I think there's a way to appeal to him with, hey man, this is business. Like this is what the market will bear for your business. It's unfortunate, but this is where we're at.
Yeah.
So you have to make a decision. Do I want some or none?
Yeah.
And if you're gonna make none, that's silly. That's silly on you. But here's what it is. And
even if you just said the 2 years, 24, like that's what we're gonna do. 2 years, 24. Because right now, as it stands, you're looking at 2 years and $7 million a year. This is gonna give you 2 years of $12 million a year. Make him turn it down. Just make him turn it down. It changes the whole narrative of the whole conversation. Look at the Saquon narrative. That like similar situations, right? But obviously, as a 5th year option, obviously Saquon was making more money. But now it got out what they offered Saquon. And now you're like, man, Saquon, look, I know it's not 16. You should have taken that deal, man. Like that's more money than you're going to get on these tags.
I can't remember what did they offer him? Because I've seen different.
I think it was 13, wasn't it? Like 13 for a couple years. Yeah.
They had him either way, DJ. They had him either way. Like, so Saquon's the perfect example because guess what? 2 franchise tags, 24 million. Okay, cool. Like, I got you at 12 regardless. Like either way. So how do you want it? I can give you a little extra sugar. I can give you make you feel good about it, but this is what the position will bear. And if I have the vehicle in the franchise tag, my job as the general manager is to deploy that as I see fit. And with running backs, it makes sense to use the franchise tag because you're leasing the car. You're not buying the car, you're leasing the car. And so that's the thing. Now, I'll say this. They also should have backstopped Jonathan Taylor? Because this had to be something that ownership had to talk about. So at this point, I got to make sure I got to have a guy behind him that's a high-end guy.
Yeah,
because if he's not there, because now I'm killing the quarterback.
Yeah.
You don't have anybody that concerns you. I know Zach Moss was kind of the plan.
He's out.
Yeah, so now
Evan Hull, it's kind of, it's not bad. Interesting guy, but still, nonetheless.
DJ, not bad is not that advanced scouting report where you go in there and you talk to the D coordinator. Hey man, who we got to stop? He's not making us. Oh, I mean, hey guys, we gotta have it.
So that's why I tweeted out, and I got a lot of blowback on it. But I was like, I want to pull it up to make sure that I read it correctly because I don't want to misstate it here. But you leave these things. I always try and like say, okay, tweet out like, here's some of my takeaways from what I saw, what have you. So I said, let's see. Jonathan Taylor didn't practice. He changes the whole dynamic of this offense, far and away the most explosive element for this team. Hopefully they get things resolved. And then this guy says, how does an injured player change the dynamics of an offense and get a new deal? And my response to that was, without him on the field, they have solid skill players, but they lack an explosive element. That changes the looks you get from the defense. He's their biggest difference maker on offense. Therefore, the dynamic significantly changes when he's not out there. Does that make sense? And I always go back to when we were doing advanced scouting reports, and you have to talk to the coaches and you go in there and say, okay, you can't let this guy beat you. Mm-hmm. This is the guy, circle him. He's a problem. I remember I always go back and we tell the story about playing the Panthers, and it was Steve Smith and Julius Peppers. Like, whatever we got to do not let those two guys beat you, because that is it. That is what they're going to come at you with. And sure enough, those guys, one of those games ended up winning the game basically by themselves. Jonathan Taylor's that guy. Outside of him, I don't think you're getting many sleepless nights for any of those other guys.
Players not players. So at the beginning of the pod, when you talked about the Colts, you talked about the size and those things. You talk about Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce and Johnny Woods and Mo Cox. All those guys are great. But DJ, if we went to the defensive coordinator and said, hey, man, they got this guy and this guy and this guy, none of those guys commands a double team. Yeah. The only guy who makes you change the way that you play defensively is Jonathan Taylor. Because when Jonathan Taylor is on the field, you have to have the conversation. We need the extra guy in the box to slow him down. Mm-hmm. If he's not on the field, oh, man, I'm not saying it's easy peasy, but you're getting the vanilla. You're getting day one defense.
You're getting jabs. Like, to me, like when you look at that offense, they got a lot of guys that can throw a nice jab. Jonathan Taylor can deliver the knockout punch. It's 50, 60, 70. Like that's a different deal.
Jonathan Taylor is the one guy on offense that changes the way that you have to play. And in a league where we talk about it, look, man, it's players, not plays. You got to have players. When you have players, it dictates the plays that you can run to get the others off. He is important because he allows the other guys to get loose off of all the attention that he commands. Without him, none of those guys can defeat one-on-one coverage. None of those guys are game-changing weapons that you have to really come up with different game plans to defend.
Give you one more quick story, and then we'll move on to the Cowboys. But practice is ending. It was really kind of a bizarre scene, kind of set the scene for you. So where our tent is, and it's me, Rhett, and Ian. And then we're right at the end zone. And then right beyond the end zone is Irsay's bus. So we get word early on that Jonathan Taylor is in the bus with Irsay. Ian has this information. Ian then quickly learns that he's demanded a trade. So Ian has this information. I'm like, have you tweeted out? He's like, nah, I got to wait until until they get off the bus. Irsay will do some media stuff. I'll wait till he's done with the media, and then I'll put out the tweet. Right. So Irsay's taking forever with the media. And then finally, he gets done. Ian's still waiting for him. He's in his golf cart. He's got his I don't know if I believe his bodyguards or assistants or whatever with him. So the cart's starting to pull away. And so Ian's going to wait till he gets off the field, then he'll send the tweet. Well, anyways, there's a bunch of fans off to the side behind the fence yelling, Mr. Irsay, will you sign this? Will you sign this? But he goes, stop the cart. So they stop the cart, and he goes, sorry, I don't have time to come over there and sign, but here, take this. Hands an envelope to the bodyguard or / assistant. He goes over, hands it to the fan. I thought maybe it's like tickets to a preseason game or something, right? The fan, I see him open the envelope, but I can't see what's in the envelope. And this guy's losing his mind, like jumping up and down. And I'm like, what the heck is in the envelope? And then the guy next to him goes, what is it? He goes, it's $2,000 cash. He gave him $2,000 cash.
Hey, you know what you just did? You
better get some security on the way to your car, bud.
No, not only that, you just made me want to go to a Colts practice and be a civilian.
Heck yeah, once that
hey, Mr. Irsay.
Yeah, there's Anthony Richardson. Oh my gosh, there's DeForest Buckner. No, Mr. Irsay.
You're my favorite owner. You're my favorite owner. Yeah, let me get the bag.
$2K. Guy went to training camp and walked out with $2K.
Holy smokes, that's great.
Yeah, it was class. I was dying laughing, man. But I guess they said he does that kind of stuff all the time. Like maybe not that amount of money, but like he'll come with like $100 bills and stuff and just go randomly hand them out to people. But anyways, he ended up leaving the field. Ian lobbed the tweet, and then obviously everyone went crazy with this with the whole trade request. So fascinating day there at Colts camp. The next one, Cowboys, was up there. Great visit, man. They give you so much access. Like, and not that the Colts weren't great. I mean, they had us right there on the field, but in terms of what they let us shoot, like the Cowboys let it shoot, they just have to shoot it tight. They don't want to see the whole formation, but they've embraced the America's team thing. And there's 5 or 6 radio stations that are doing live broadcasts from Dallas. Every TV anchor is there. I mean, it is I have 2 kids that go to college in Texas, and Cowboy games on, you can't do anything with your friends because they're all huddled around a TV watching the Cowboys.
So when you open it up like that, what you do is you create a generation of fans. When you give access, you create lifelong fans. Now, good, bad, or indifferent. We talked about the Cowboys and the fact they haven't won a Super Bowl since the mid-90s, but they still are quote-unquote America's team. You still
value is through the roof.
DJ, when you go up there for training camp, just so people understand, you have no idea how packed it is. It is packed in Oxnard. Oxnard is a ways away from LA, but it is absolutely to the gills. When you walk up in there, you look at the stands, it is packed every day. They can't get enough of it. It really is kind of the pro version of the concert or the rock star celebrity status that SC used to have when Pete Carroll was there. When Pete Carroll's like, hey man, we're good. It don't matter. Y'all can know what it is. We're going to open it up.
Yeah.
And everyone fell in love with SC during the time because the access that they gave, it was unprecedented. And so with the Cowboys, they embrace, let everyone come in and see what we have and talk about the star. And whether you talk about us good, bad, or indifferent, you're talking about us. And so Jerry Jones understands the marketing part of the Cowboys. But I also think overall, I think they feel like they're going to be pretty good. And I think because they feel like they're pretty good, they're not afraid to kind of like let people kind of see what's going on. Defensively, I heard you guys talk about Micah Parsons and how he absolutely destroyed the practice.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that. Tell me a little bit. It was like a 3-play sequence where you like sack, force fumble, like just something like absolutely bananas. Like, okay, Mike, we're gonna take you out so we now can practice.
He hit Tyron Smith. He got upfield on Tyron Smith, got him to overset, inside arm, dumped him. And then, he's winning with speed. Then he dusts off a spin. Then it's the run game, and he's knifing through. It was fascinating, talking to different coaches, and even talking to players, like even talking to Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks has been around Aaron Donald, obviously the best defensive player in the league. And he said they're so similar in that they're supremely gifted, like rare gifts, but like maniacal, obsessive, type guys that we've talked about this stuff before. Peyton Manning, Kobe Bryant stuff. Like it seems like he's wired like that, like just insanely competitive. And, I know we had this conversation last year, and I can't remember which one of us brought it up, but I know obviously with you playing with Derek Thomas that we said, if you just deployed him full time off the edge, like how is he not getting 20 sacks? He's a 20 sack guy. Like that sounds high. That's like, oh, is that?
I know.
No. I would wager a nice lunch that he would get 20 sacks if you let him rush off the edge full time.
And the thing is, like, what he has the opportunity to do is not only rush off the edge full time. Let's just say we're going to rush you full time. Like we're going to allow you to find a tomato can, and we're going to allow you to just line up and wear him out. So look, we have a 3-man front and Micah. Yeah. Hey man, you just tell them wherever you're going before the snap, and we'll adjust to you. Because DJ, what they were doing is they were wearing people out where they were letting him work one-on-one on guards,
Yeah,
no
chance.
They couldn't use their body head. Then his ability to go off the edge. And I think that, I guess the funny thing, DJ, and here's the part sometimes in evaluation when guys come out, the other stuff, right? The noise off the field or whatever, him coming out of Penn
immaturity.
State,
I mean, the biggest thing was there was a concern about immaturity, and it doesn't seem to have been an issue at all.
I mean, and then you're sitting there looking like, man, like this is a freak show athlete who, when you look him play, he has number 1 overall pick ability.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and we just couldn't see it because of all the other stuff. But like, this dude is a freak show when it comes to how he's able to attack and do that. And when you have those kinds of players that you can build your defense around, I mean, it's scary. It's scary how good this guy can be.
Yeah, it was an impressive show. As good of a training camp practice as I've seen from a player, just dominant player. Now, keep in mind on the other side, if you're going to say what concerns you a little bit about this team, as it is right now, the offensive line concerns me. Tyron, and then some of it's going up against Micah, but Tyron looked a little bit old. Zach Martin's not there. He hadn't been good the last couple of years.
Man, Tyron's been old for a while, man. Like they've had replaced it. Tyler Smith, how did he look up there?
Yeah, he was playing inside at guard. I was playing left guard. Then you had but you had no Zach Martin. You had Terrence Steele wasn't doing much. He's still coming back from injury. He'll be back in there. He'll be fine. But that was, there was some heat. They got some heat on Dak. Now they are pushing the ball down the field. Brandon Cooks caught a big one. CeeDee Lamb's a stud. So they're getting the ball down the field. They're going to be fine offensively. Tony Pollard, I think the only concern there is he's easing him back in coming off the injury. I hope they don't overload him. They need to divvy up carries and spread those out. I think more is less almost with him like that. Or less is more. Just, to me, let him handle the ball enough, but not too much, because that's where you lose some of his effectiveness. I don't think people understand. They go, oh, if he had this many yards and this many touchdowns and this many carries, it's going to obviously double if we double those. No. He's not built to handle that.
So here's the thing, because you slipped up and you talked about Zeke being there. Yeah. I believe they need to re-sign Zeke. But look, by now the price tag has come down, so you should be able to get him. One of the things, and he's no longer there, but Skip Pete used to talk about with Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott. He was like, think of you being a guy who has 2 cars in the garage, right? And so, DJ, we've seen people who kind of live this life like Sunday is the Corvette car, right? like Saturday, Sunday, the weekend, it's the fun car. We're going to the beach, drop the top, we're cruising. Well, Tony Pollard is that car. But then you got to go to work throughout the week, the commuter, right? You need a sedan, one that's a little more gas mileage. You used to get beat up a little bit. That is what Ezekiel Elliott was for them. And if you try to make Tony Pollard, the Corvette, your everyday car, you wear it out. When you think about those tires, those high-profile tires and low-profile tires and all that other stuff, you wear it all out. That's not Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard is a 12 to 15 touch guy. You want him to maximize his touch at 12 to 15. You give him 20, you're going to wear him out. He's not a sedan. And so they need to make sure that they have somebody in the stable that can be the sedan, that can be the heavy duty, hey man, I'm just going to go around town, I'm pick up the groceries and do all that other stuff. And I'm concerned right now that they don't have that person in the fold, because it impacts the way that you overuse Tony Pollard. And by the end of the season, he won't be able to give you the bang for the buck that you want from him.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just think you look at that basket of carries that he had, and either you bring him back and give him the same basket, or you take that basket and you disperse it amongst 3 or 4 other guys. And maybe Deuce Vaughn gets a little bit of that as well, who's going to be a fun player for them in a limited role. But offensively, I think they're still going to be dynamic. They're still going to score points. The offensive line would be my concern. CeeDee Lamb, again, caught some down the field. The one thing that I just put a little bit of pause on, because CeeDee Lamb said in an interview while we were there, not with us, but I think it was on local radio, he had said, vertical, like we're going to get a lot more vertical and all this kind of stuff. Well, then Siciliano brought it up. Like if you look at CeeDee Lamb, he had the second most explosive plays in the league last year. It's just the majority of them were coming run after catch. And so I brought up the point. I'm like, look, as a former quarterback and a crappy one, if you told me I can get a 50-yard completion by throwing the ball 50 yards, or I can get a 50-yard completion by throwing the ball 5 yards, I'd prefer to throw it 5. I mean, like, you've got run after catch guys. Like CeeDee Lamb is elite run after catch. So why be obsessed with trying to get him over the top? I don't need to get him over the top. Just let him uncover and get him the ball in space and let him go.
Yeah, no, that's a big thing. The other thing is this, DJ. The league is transitioning where they're not letting you throw the ball over the top like that.
Roof up.
Look, everyone is putting the umbrella up. Like we're gonna play quarters coverage. We're gonna make you dink it and dunk it, and we're gonna rally and tackle. And so, as much as we talk about that stuff, and that stuff is great looking in training camp, right? Like, oh man, we're just throwing it, the crowd goes crazy. DJ, the number one thing that most defensive coordinators are gonna tell you: don't let the ball fly over the top of the defense. It's the quickest way to lose a game. Keep it in front, rally and tackle, and make them drive the length of the field. We have seen more teams employ that straight. You see it every week with Brandon Staley. Oh, no. You're not getting the deep ball. You're going to have all that stuff underneath, and we're rallying tackle, and then we'll be great in the red zone. But we're not letting you have these 2-3 play scoring drives where you hit a bomb and an explosive play. They're not going to be able to generate the kind of explosive where you just line up and just throw it over the top of the defense. It's not going to happen.
Which I'm going to take us in a different direction here real quick. But again, it's another reminder of how unbelievable Andy Reid is. He saw where this was going. Like we talk about all these trees and all this kind of stuff, and somehow Andy's off in his own little island. Andy saw, okay, we are torching people with explosives, torching them. And all of a sudden he starts seeing that. And we saw it in the Buffalo game that first time we were doing Amazon Thursday night game. They put the safeties in the parking lot. They're not giving you that. And then Andy kind of was, so then he goes into that next offseason. Tyreek Hill, love you, unbelievable, but they're not going to give us some of those looks anymore. So, we love you, great player, but we're going to figure out how to beat this. I know what we're going to see every week. So I'm going to get a collection of guys run after catch guys. We'll go get Juju Smith-Schuster, these, all these different guys run after catch. And then we'll go out there and bludgeon the league when they want to try and employ this new strategy.
And look, it's worked out for them. And it'll be a time where, look, everyone, when everyone is zigging, you want to zag. And so that's just the way it is. And as the defenses begin to catch up with the offense, you'll see this thing continue to change. And so the evolution of the Cowboys offense that I want to see is Mike McCarthy would seemingly grow frustrated with Kellen Moore, despite Kellen Moore's success as an offensive coordinator. Mm-hmm. So what does Mike McCarthy do differently? He has Brian Schottenheimer there in fold as offensive coordinator. So you want to think, okay, well, what's the running game? But when we just talked about Tony Pollard, do they have a banker? How can they manufacture that running game that they talk about doing? And so to me, it'll just be interesting to see how the Cowboys play. But the one point that came out of the report when you were up there, they talked about Dak Prescott having full ownership of the offense, kind of being able to call his own plays, being able to have everything at his disposal. When you get to that, this is around the time where quarterbacks should be like that. You're going to see Justin Herbert have that in a year or two where they're like, hey, man, here's the game plan.
Yeah, go do it.
You kind of go take us the way that you want us, and we kind of follow your lead. With Dak Prescott's at that point. And so it's a pivotal year for Dak Prescott because now you want to see Dak Prescott play like one of those top 7 or 8 quarterbacks in the league. The Cowboys are counting on that. It's not only the pay, but it's what they're doing. They're giving him the ownership to do it. So now he's going to be accountable for his performance and the offense's performance.
Yeah, no, it is a good team and a talented team, a balanced team on both sides. I did see another number they put up. I think Dak is like 7-1 in his last 8 division games. So they have done very well in that division.
He owns the division. He's been great against the division.
They got to win the games outside the division though, and try and bring that title back home. But it's going to be a fun matchup with them in Philly this year. I think it's, the Cowboys always get attention, but it feels like for me, the expectation, at least in the media, is 9 out of 10 are going to say the Eagles are going to win that division just because the roster is stacked. But I think the Cowboys are a dangerous team, and I think they're very much in it. They got a real shot in this thing, and there's a confidence there. It's kind of maybe a little bit more of a subtle, quiet confidence there. Maybe not quite as brash as maybe it's been in the past, but you can tell it's a confident group.
Yeah, very confident group. Like they're ready, and so we'll see how it plays out. I just know the AFC is crazy competitive with the quarterback play and that stuff, and then the NFC is. This one, man, if you got a top-level quarterback or a quarterback who has the potential to get to the top, you not only have an opportunity to win your division, man, but you could go right to the show because the quarterback play in the NFC is significantly not as competitive as the AFC. And so that gives the Cowboys and the Eagles an opportunity to really take a major jump over some of the competition when it comes to it.
I'll leave you with this one, Buck. I know we're doing something right when I get these random conversations, which I told you about the one in Alaska. Big Bucky Brooks fan, big Move the Sticks podcast fan when I'm in Sitka, Alaska, of all places. That I was at going through TSA in Indy, and put my bag on the conveyor belt and walk by. He goes, "Hey, you can pick up your bag over there." And he like leans in, and I thought he was going to tell me like, you're carrying a water or something. I got to go back to the security line. He goes, "Love the pod, love the pod." Like, hey, Indy TSA, I hear you. So it's like, I love that if you guys see us out and about at NFL settings or even just kind of at the mall, shoot, we love to hear those stories. So it means that we're doing something right. So we appreciate it. Anything else you want to add, Buck?
No. This is great, man. This is the best time of year. We got training camp. We're on the horizon of the preseason game. And once that first preseason game, man, it is on to the middle of February. So a lot of fun.
Yep, a lot of fun. We're going to be out to some more camps, so we'll give you the updates on those. Maybe even give you a couple names here. I know we are a football pod with a scouting background, but I know you guys got some fantasy drafts coming up, so we might give you a couple nuggets, a couple names of some guys to keep an eye on out there. And we'll see if we can help you win your league this year. All right, that's going to do it for us. Thanks to Nabil, best producer in the business, and we'll see you next time right here on Move the Sticks.